5 o'clock having arrived, I will officially call the meeting to order. Has the meeting been properly posted and roll been taken?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, our approval of the minutes, 2.1 minutes from September 3rd, 2024 meeting. I entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 3, under communications, our next regular meeting of the Planning Commission will take place on Monday, November 11th, 2024 at 5 p.m. due to the November election. Just as a heads up there. Also under communications, just so no one's surprised, I'm not sure how late. It looks like we've got some additional visitors here than we have in the past. I have reservations with my son, one last dinner before I take him to the airport at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm sure if others were in a similar situation, nothing against you guys, I love all of you, but I want to spend some more additional time before we send my son back to the Marines out of California. So I'm not getting up and just walking out for no reason. I just wanted to let's make people aware of that if it should happen. And I know Kevin has been our designee in the past, and I'll turn the gavel over at that time if needed. With that, item number 4, public hearing, review and possible recommendation, FEH design for the city of Delavan. I would open the public hearing at this time and ask our staff to start us off.
Starting with number 4.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Well, I'll just read it. 4.1 is the public hearing on a request to consider a plan infill development amendment to the official zoning map for step 3 general development plan GDP at 404 East Walworth Avenue, tax parcels XP4, XP7, and XP9, located in the industrial and residential mix 8, I and RM-8 zoning districts to allow for an indoor institutional land use. Applicant, again, FEH design for the city of Delavan. Start with the state.
All right, good evening. This is, as the mayor noted, a GDP for the Delavan Public Library to expand in their current location. Later in this agenda, we'll be reviewing a PIP for the same project. And then even further down the agenda, we'll be looking at a city information sign for the same project. So this item and this public hearing pertains to the GDP, which establishes the custom zoning district for the library. What they're proposing involves an addition to the existing library to the south, and the library has acquired additional land to accommodate the expansion and to provide a new parking lot to the east of the building. They're also providing an outdoor youth program area at the rear of the project. I'm hoping when the applicant comes up, they can tell you a bit more about that. I think we did discuss it briefly at the concept review at our last meeting as well. The applicant is utilizing the planned infill development for this project, namely because they're located in the BC zoning district, and indoor institutional is actually not a permitted use within our downtown. That was done intentionally so that the city could have really fine-grained control over where those indoor institutional uses are located within the downtown. But that does mean our library is a legal but non-conforming use. And so if we utilize the PID process, we can create a custom zoning district that allows for this use. And it also allows for the library to request certain zoning flexibilities from the BC zoning district, which I will describe later. Actually, I'll go into those right now. So our BC zoning district requires downtown style buildings. So if this were a typical commercial building in our downtown, it would require 0 setback. So the building needs to be right up on the sidewalk. It would require 0 setback on the sides as well. So we have that classic downtown building. And it would also require a minimum of 2 stories. So this proposed project does not meet any of those requirements. Rather, it seeks to be more compatible with the existing library building. And so the existing historic public library building is set back considerably from the street. It's set back from both side lot lines. And the existing library is 1 story, but the proposed addition would be, the existing library is 2 stories, but the proposed addition would be 1 story. And so this proposed addition lines up nicely behind the existing building rather than sticking out and meeting those setback requirements. So staff feels this is very appropriate, in fact preferable, to have an addition that's consistent with that historic building. They're also proposing screening of residential to the south of the property. That's discussed more under the PIP part of the agenda. An issue that came up at the previous meeting was parking for the library. So as we discussed at the concept review last month, because this is in the BC zoning district, no parking is required. But I think it's important to have some sort of parking for the public library. It's an important community facility. It has parking now, and that's something that we're going to want to see going forward. And they have provided a new parking lot. Again, I mentioned to the east of the existing building. That lot includes 29 parking spaces, which includes spaces designated for ADA and for electric vehicle charging. As we noted in the concept review, that is a very tightly designed parking lot. It meets all the zoning, almost all of our zoning requirements, but would be really challenging for a large truck to navigate some of those turns. And so staff is recommending a condition of approval that any larger trucks load from 4th Street entrance rather than entering that parking lot. Additionally, there is on-street parking in the downtown. The library is working with the owner of the Family Dollar property to provide 13 off-site parking spaces in the Family Dollar parking lot that could be used by patrons and staff. There's also a parking lot across the street that's city-owned. One of those,
Could you speak up, please? It's a little hard for the rest of us to hear.
Really?
I don't know if the microphone.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
Oh, there it
Your
is.
microphone is enough.
It is or is not? Oh. Sorry about that. How does this sound?
No.
No, I think it just
That's
turned
worse.
That's worse, okay.
It
That's-
sounds like it's,
It's nice.
the fingers on.
I'll just tap, I'll Morse code it. Well, I can project a bit more now that I know folks can't hear me.
No,
Okay,
I can hear
I can't hear you.
She's not saying anything.
Would it help to maybe speak more kind of
Yeah.
this way as opposed
Yes.
to your back to
I think I'll
the,
stand. Try this.
No,
with the mic? I was kind of like,
The mic.
maybe if there was a way to switch, I don't know, if there's a way to.
just be louder.
I can definitely do that. I'll do louder and I'll use the mic. Thank you. Okay, so just going over parking available in the area. So I think we all understand that like any downtown business or building, sometimes there will be busy periods and people will have to look for parking in other locations, so find street parking, or walk a longer distance than maybe you would in other places. That's sort of the nature of the downtown development. Staff feels it's important to keep the library in the downtown. It's a really important community center. It brings a lot of people down to the downtown and supports the businesses in the area. Staff supports the amount of parking that's proposed by the applicant, feeling that the trade-off is worth having that downtown public library. So as part of the GDP, the library is requesting several flexibilities from the base zoning district of Business Central. As I mentioned before, indoor institutional is being added as a permitted land use. They're also requesting flexibility for the maximum building side setback and the minimum building height. So again, to match the context of the existing historic public library building. And then the fourth flexibility is for minimum throat length. So minimum throat length is a measurement that we include in our parking lot requirements. Basically requires 25 feet from when a car enters the parking lot at the right of way to when they have their first opportunity to turn into a parking space or a drive aisle. The idea there is just to ensure adequate stacking of cars as they enter the parking lot. In this case, it is a very tight site, and so the applicant is proposing a throat length of 13.6 feet rather than the 25 feet that would ordinarily be required. Staff feels that this is appropriate in order to maximize the amount of parking available in that parking lot. There's a number of conditions of approval that have recommended that are included in the staff report. Primarily of interest to you would be just the requirement to have trucks that are 16 feet in length or longer unload at the 4th Street entrance rather than in the parking lot. With that, staff recommends approval, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well to answer questions.
Would you like to start us off with any questions to our staff before we open it up to the applicant? Are there any questions at this time for staff? Otherwise, Kevin?
Brian, so we can withhold questions
Right.
for staff until the consideration.
Right.
Right.
Good point there. And then at this time, then I guess I would ask the applicant to maybe come up to the podium and share any, we've got quite the lengthy memo, all of us in our packets, but if there's anything else you want to highlight.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, I'm just gonna project. I'm Christy Monk with FEH Design Architect and Project Manager. I am acting as the applicant on behalf of the city for this GDP. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Jackie went over it. If you look at the FEH report, let's see. Okay, you don't have to, I'll look for you. The existing building is 11,660 square feet over 2 floor levels. And we are adding on to create a total square footage of 32,734. So we are proposing a parking lot to the east. We've got an accessible entrance to the historic building through a raised floor slab on the east side of the historic building that will have access to the elevator and a stairwell to the upper level, and then access to the library through the library addition itself on the east and the west. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the design, or and we also have Andy from Snyder and Associates, who are doing the civil and landscaping design.
Great. Yes, Kevin.
I have one simple question about the new access from what we would call the east side to provide access to the second floor, which wasn't always provided. What is your guys' estimate of the additional cost of that against the $8.3 million project cost already bid?
To provide the accessible entrance?
Yeah.
Well, we're utilizing an existing opening.
No, there's a window.
Yes, so we're using the existing window opening, I guess. We would be raising the floor. We have to move an electrical panel. There's some structural work. I'm sorry, sir, I don't have a firm estimate. I think we'd be looking at maybe less than $100,000 to provide that accessible entrance.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
Thank you for your consideration, gentlemen.
All right. At this time, I would call on anyone that wishes to speak either in favor or against this project for any reason. All I would ask is that you state your name and address for the record and limit it. We've got, I don't know how many people are here to speak on this particular issue or not. Just limit it to about 2 minutes and try to not be repetitive if we can help it. There's nothing wrong with reiterating some of the comments, but I think it's always important to share, kind of some different. Is there anyone that wishes to speak either in favor or against this project? This time again, I would just have you come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
With all due respect, if we could turn the podium back around, because they're supposed to be addressing us.
Right.
Turn the mic, fix the mic.
Fix the microphone. Be calm and kind humans to each other.
We do want to keep some decorum here and.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Speak up.
Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah, just move the microphone.
Thank you.
If you talk close.
Okay, it'll work. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Terry Yankee from Delavan. My address is a P.O. Box. I'm the president of the Friends of Aaron Public Library, and I'm also on the board of Delavan Aaron Public Library Foundation. I was on the past mayor's task force for the library, and I attend many of the library board meetings. I'm very excited about and look forward to our new addition to Aaron Public Library. We certainly need the space. If you've been at Aaron Library last Friday, you would have seen for yourself the need for space. Over 87 people attended the program that was held there. The speaker only had a small space in front of the library there. Also, at the same time, the Manhattan Short Film Festival was held in the meeting room downstairs, and about 15 people came to that. Commenting on parking concerns that were previously brought up, all those people found places to park that came to the program that day. This past summer, there were children's programs that sometimes drew about 200 children and adults. They all found parking. I attended most of the concerts at the Phoenix Park Band Shell this summer. Well over 3,000 to 4,000 people were there. They all found parking in the area. And as they say, if you build it, they will come. It builds a lot of excitement when a lot of people come to events at the library. We've been discussing this addition and the new library since before the present firehouse was built, which was in 2011. That's almost 14 years. And it's about time we got this new library built. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak either in favor or against the project at this time? If not, close the public hearing at this time and move on to item 4.2, which is consider a planned infill development amendment to the official zoning map for step 3, general development plan GDP at 404 East Walworth Avenue, tax parcel XP4, XP7, and XP9 located in the institutional and residential mixed 8I and RM-8 zoning districts to allow for an indoor institutional land use applicant FEH design for the city of Delavan. Care to make a motion?
Right,
Yes, Kevin.
I asked if we could, have
Ask
some
questions?
discussion and questions.
Yeah.
If specifically, Jackie, could you?
Yep.
Okay, the present, memo says staff, believes present, parking requirements are fine. This should be something we waive, right? And so the whole point of the PID process is to identify whether or not we should waive certain portions of the existing zoning regulations to create a new zoning district to allow something that would normally be illegal. Right?
That's correct.
Okay, so, you note in your memo that, for a building this size, we would normally be expected to allow it to happen if there were 130 parking spaces.
And that would be
Hold on.
outside of the downtown.
Right, is that correct?
If it were located outside of the downtown, yes.
Right, and so, but the 130 is based on expecting that's what's gonna be the need for the building. Right?
Yes. Based on
Not
square-
because.
It's based on square footage.
Right, not because planners want extra asphalt outside of a central zoning district, correct?
Right, it's based on the square footage of the building.
Right, so the 130 outside of central business district isn't because we're more stringent out there. We actually say there's more space out there, and we wanna make sure there's that much space because that's how it's gonna be used, right?
Right.
Okay, so going back in history, part of the expansion of the library has been to address a couple of things that I think are issues with the present proposal. One is there's not enough access, and the access particularly by collecting people with parking spaces. The second problem is access, because we built a split level library thanks to the Arams and thanks to the first expansion, right? We're trying to solve both those things, right? And so my question to you is this. You said there were 130 spaces required for a normal place like this. Have you guys done an estimate about how many spaces are realistically provided in the sources that you identified?
Well, there's 29 in the proposed parking lot, approximately 30 in the lot across the street. I don't remember the on-street counts. It was around 10. So that would put you at 70. And that's if only library users used all of those spaces.
Right, and so I did my best count, I live down the street and I want this to happen, right? But we gotta solve this problem. Right now, we claim the parking lot serves 29, right? Two of those spots are EV.
Mhm.
So I think we need to call it 27.
You can if you would like.
All right. We gave them a throat exception that we wouldn't give to any business. Right?
Typically not, no,
Huh?
no.
That eliminates 6. We're to 21.
If you were to enforce the 25-foot throat extension, you're saying you'd lose parking spaces.
Correct.
Mhm.
So across the street, I counted the city lot striping, that's 25. So we're at 46. I counted all of the parallel lots on 4th Street, that's 15. What am I at now? 4. And then 10 more on East Walworth, 17. Okay, and so we're at half of what we need. Now, there's a reference in the document that says we're trying to work with the guy next door, right? Which I think we should ensure we have secured before we approve this. If this was a private business that attracted this many customers, we would say we have to have more security here, I think. What do you think?
I think we treat the public library different than we would treat a private business.
Yes.
And why?
Yes.
Because it only gets crowded part of the day, and
In my opinion, we accept trade-offs for a community facility that has other benefits beyond just the benefits that a regular business would provide.
can I ask you a question about that then?
Mhm.
Why did we only provide 2 handicap spots in its parking lot.
I'm not sure that the applicant's responsible for determining what the ADA requirements are.
So
They
if
could
we
exceed
say,
if they wish to.
if you were to tell me there was a requirement for 130 parking spaces for a public building, how many public ADA spaces would you say were required?
I think it's like the percentage of how many spaces you've provided.
Right, so 130,
I'm not sure what that percentage is.
10%?
I'm not sure. I think it
5%?
steps up based on when you hit certain thresholds.
So, let's just say it's 8 spaces. So, let's say it's only 7%,
Mhm.
right? So that means the effective parking lot of this building outside of what we should require, because I want to require public parking spaces for ADA people, right?
Mhm.
Is now 12. 21, 13, 21 minus 8. My calculation on the effective parking spaces of the, you're still feeling parking's adequate?
I think the city's done a lot to try to get more parking in this space, in this area. And to me, it's important to have the library in this location.
I agree with
I think-
you completely.
Yeah, so
I send my grandchildren, I send my children, I send myself. Regulation says related to, planned infill development, that step 2, which is the step you led us through the last time, right? The preferred procedure is for one or more iterations of the plan commission review of the concept plan to occur prior to introduction of the formal rezoning petition, which accompanies the GEP application, right? Has anything changed about my questions about the parking?
No.
Has anything changed in the application about the parking?
No.
Okay, have you respected, or has the applicant respected at all the provision that the preferred procedure is that we should continue to discuss this?
The applicant heard the comments at concept review and determined they wanted to proceed with the GEP submittal.
Okay, so we identified the deficient comments, and the applicant preferred to say, we don't want to hear them.
I can't speak for that.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question related to this is, have you reviewed the accessibility issues to the second floor in the revised plan?
So those plans will have to be reviewed by the state, and the state will require them to meet ADA requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Matt.
So I just want to talk about parking for a minute. Normally, you don't build parking lots to facilitate projects that are going to be built in the future. That's putting the cart before the horse. So I don't see that as something that should be linked to this particular project. In addition, the library predominantly services the citizens of Delavan. And as such, they can walk or bike or come here in multiple other ways other than utilizing the parking spaces that are put in place. So those are components that I'm taking into consideration when I look at this particular problem. I think that it would be appropriate for us to closely monitor parking throughout the city and the downtown, and to weigh the needs for all businesses and all enterprises within those areas to determine if parking is something that needs to be addressed at a later date.
Did you have another comment or okay? Hey, Brian?
I did look at some information and I did find that the way the ADA works, it's only related to the number of spaces provided by the given property. And 1 to 25 is one ADA accessible space. If it was 130 spaces built, it would only require 5.
Show 4.
And we've got them on the street too. So if we're gonna count the street as parking, we need to remember that.
By the
And
way, the two that
USDA
were shown on
and
the
you-
screen,
The USDA rural development also will check the plans and require everything to be ADA compliant. That is a condition of the loan.
the two shown on 4th Street were based on diagonal parking.
Pardon? What's that?
So, Michelle showed us today the plan that showed the 2 additional spaces shown on 4th Street were based on diagonal parking. There is not diagonal.
We have since changed the
Could-
plan.
Could you
Yeah,
come?
I'd be happy to come up. Just based on comments we've had with, city staff, based on how the street gets plowed, the request was to revise that back to parallel parking. So we have 2 accessible parallel parking spaces directly to the west of the new entrance.
Part of the problem is there's an alley across there that goes behind Old Wisco. They take deliveries on that. And if they had done the diagonal parking as far as we originally planned, they would have had to remove just as many spaces as we were gaining. So it did nothing for us to go diagonal once we realized that. So that's why we just reverted back to what it is set up now.
Okay, so.
And I believe this has been glossed over, but my understanding is that properties that are zoned business central don't have to meet the zoning parking requirements, which is
Great.
part of the whole discussion.
Great, it's part of the whole reason we're rebuilding the library is because we used that exception before and didn't build a facility program correctly for the use of the citizens. My esteemed colleague speaks to the city of Delavan based like I am, a resident of the center of the city of Delavan, and a representative, I might point out, of the same aldermanic district, District 2. If you look at the map, a large, I would say majority of the population of the city of Delavan does not use the library by foot or bike like I do, my wife does, my grandchildren do. Okay, and so provision for access of an extended facility is a critical component. And I agree completely, Brian, with the need to put this library in the central business district. It attracts people, it's great, it's been built wrong. Once again,
I would argue this building was expanded wrong too, because.
right, I agree, completely. Yeah. And so our excuse shouldn't be it's built wrong again. And so I think that the right thing to do here is to move to the preferred procedure, which is 1 or more plan commission review of the concept plan prior to introduction of the formal rezoning.
No.
Okay, you want to see how many say no? Because, Ryan, we have to resolve the plan, the parking issue. And then I have another question, and the question is second floor access, which has been redesigned since our last meeting, right?
It hasn't, it's the same.
Same,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
it's been the
It's
same.
the same.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm just clarifying that there is accessible access to the upper level via the
And
elevator.
so, how much, and you guys said $150,000 extra?
Yeah,
Okay,
as our guesstimate at this
Okay.
point, yes.
thanks.
I thought you had said less than 100,000, now you're saying 150.
Approximately $100,000 is where I would stand on that one,
So,
without
Thank
doing
you,
more
Lauren.
math.
But yeah, thank you, Kevin. My one question would be, to I think Kevin's point earlier about, ensuring that there's, I think it's 13 stalls, like you said, with the business to the east of there. Securing that, it does make sense to make sure that we secure that almost before, but in addition to that, looking at it before the meeting too, is there anything that would stop the city from actually not just working out an easement for 13, but since we're doing all of the work, I would say, not just the majority of the work, actually looking to purchase land where we could get more than 13 stalls? Has that been considered, could it be considered, what's the price tag? I know what the price tag is to repave, but instead of actually going for an easement, purchasing it. I think it would be cheaper than buying another house and tearing it down to add parking. That's my question.
Or building a ramp.
If
Building a
we
ramp.
take parking from Family Dollar, do they have the capacity to lose that? Are they part of the downtown
If you
district?
made it a public lot, I don't know, but they would be part of, they're already there, you can't take it, I don't know. Who's there.
So, Ryan, and just to be clear, 13 spaces for $125,000.
In perpetuity.
What?
I thought it was 128.
1, 2, 5. In the cap.
What's the,
But,
at that point?
from my perspective, and this is why I read, the reference to this should be a repetitive process, right? I don't think, the applicant took seriously the concern of the council, the concern of the commission related to the parking stuff. And I think that it makes sense to suggest that we have a solution to the parking stuff presented to us before we approve the GDP.
The city is the applicant, and mostly we were going by
Actually,
the-
you're not.
If you're gonna keep interrupting me, who's gonna control this? But the problem is this. There was the design charrettes. They had at least 3 or 4 public meetings on this. This was way before I got here. This has all been talked about. Did anybody ever bring up parking concerns? Did any of you ever go to the meetings?
Did anyone bring a general development plan to the plan commission, Brian?
I think that's what they're doing now, but originally, the way it was explained was there was gonna be too many problems with trying to just use the straight zoning that was there because there was property zoned different.
We're not trying to
Look.
say that you should use straight zoning, Brian,
Right, and this is
trying
what
to
staff
find-
arrived at.
an accommodation.
The accommodation was what staff thought with the PID.
Right, and the accommodation of the PID with some kind of committed parking solution makes complete sense.
My understanding from the last meeting, and please excuse me if I misspeak, I don't mean to, was that we were in a downtown district that didn't require parking. And I understand, sir, you raised those concerns. At this point, we are done with construction documents. And based on the coordination that we had done with the entities we worked with, AKA the city, we had reached at this site plan and it had been tweaked a few times. If no parking is required, should we have updated the plan to show more parking if it's not required? I'm just trying to understand, you raised the question, you had concerns about the accessible entrance. We have not changed the plans, they were always shown that way. I'm trying to understand what you would like us to do, and I would hope that in your motion, it would reflect the next steps you'd like us to take. That's all I got.
I have a question for you.
Yes, Bruce.
Go ahead.
You have the east entrance to the library, which faces east. Is that entrance then required if you don't obtain any parking stalls on that side?
Based on our understanding of how the potential use of the existing library is gonna be used, it was important in the design to try to accommodate an accessible path for an individual to park in that east parking lot and then take the sidewalk to that east door. So they would be able to utilize the existing elevator that's in place.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is that only during construction? Or?
No, that would be in place
Thank you.
the entire time. Maybe not during construction, but it would be afterwards. Making all the jokes today.
Would you say, just for a little clarity, would you say that, the actual use of the layout and some, if that were a sticking point, that could be further, like, beyond tonight's meeting, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, use of the existing building?
And whether, or is that pretty much what you're clear? It was my impression that, beyond tonight's, what you're asking for tonight, that the actual use within the footprint in the space, and potentially if there was an entrance that could all be talked about at a future meeting. Can you clarify that?
Okay. Right now, we're using a fairly restrictive use in terms of the occupants on the upper level. So we're planning for a certain number of people and a certain number of egress pathways. So what goes on that upper level could change, but at this point, the east entrance to the building and access to the elevator would be difficult to change unless it were changed kind of mid-construction or during construction. Like, you can always change it, just it'd be less expensive to change it sooner rather than later.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you've addressed, that was one of the, it was at the last informational meeting, was the accessibility and the parking. I think you addressed the accessibility, at least for me.
Okay, are there any other accessible questions? And like Jackie mentioned, we will be submitting to the state for the plan review, and if there are accessibility concerns, they'll raise it then.
Right?
Yes.
So to answer her question, yes, there are accessibility questions.
Okay.
Most of the doors shown are 36 inches.
Mhm.
The accessible bathroom doors minimum is what?
32 inches clear.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And are there any wall removals required in the existing bathrooms?
No. You can get into the existing bathrooms. We are modifying the toilet stall layout, if I remember correctly, sir. So that we would have one bathroom that's currently the women's that would have an adult changing station in it that would be lockable from the inside if you needed that whole space. And then we have the men's bathroom will be converted into a two-stall multi-gender bathroom.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, yeah. Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Okay, thanks,
All
gentlemen.
right, thank you. We're still on item 4.2. Anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend common council approval of the general development plan for the property at 404 East Walworth Avenue to allow for expansion of indoor institutional land use, including the findings as listed in the report under the required findings by the Plan Commission and any additional conditions of approval recommended by staff or the Plan Commission.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Yes, Kevin?
I moved to amend Matt's motion, and the amendment would be provided demonstration of adequate parking facilities
I don't know, it's
to be measured by a map that demonstrates 85 permitted non-handicap parking facilities, either controlled or within walking distance of the library.
Excuse me, would you please repeat that?
You don't.
I
Is there a
couldn't hear.
second?
Is there a second to that motion, to the amendment?
I have a
Yes.
clarifying question. What are you qualifying as walking distance?
Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Let's call McDowell to Washington. Right,
One block.
fifth to fourth. Yeah, there you
How hard?
go. Fifth to fourth, I said. Well, fifth to third, they don't go that way. So, I think you're gonna find the answer's gonna be fine, but
I think you're gonna find it's good.
I think we need to ensure that somebody does a map like that.
Just to make sure that there's.
Right.
Distance.
Because, just so you know, I did the count, and it's 180, it's 87 within.
It's over.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
There's a second to the amendment, any further discussion?
Yes,
Yes, well,
wanted to get in ahead of the second, but do you want to speak to the ADA accessible parking?
I think they've got it right. It's gonna cost more money, but that's not our problem.
We can understand that, but you're suggesting 85 additional spaces.
No.
They will have, once the total, they're gonna have to fix the front line, one way or another, of their parking lot. The state's not gonna let them have two. And we can't legislate it well. So.
all right,
So the answer is the 85 spaces that you're suggesting, none of which need to be ADA.
No, the 85 is the total I'm suggesting.
Total.
If you want to specify.
And then let the state step in and say,
Right.
I'm with you, okay.
all right, any other discussion on the amendment, proposed amendment? If not, everyone's clear on the amendment? Can we have a roll call on the amendment?
Commissioner DeWitt.
No.
Commissioner Kahaka,
No,
Mr. Beezer,
Yes.
Mr. Kuda,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yeah.
I forgot you again.
I know
I'm
you
sorry,
forgot.
Mayor.
That's all right. I am a yes on the amendment. So, everyone clear now on the motion as an amendment? We have a motion and a second, and we have a roll call.
Mr. Kahaka,
no,
Mr. Schrader,
Yes.
Mr. Beasley,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mr. DeWitt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, which is a public hearing to review and possible recommendation FEH design for the city of Delavan. Yes, yes, yeah. But we'll, should you want to open the public hearing and I can further read 5.1, which we're gonna be addressing?
No, point of order,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Then I'll give it the floor.
The point of order, sir, is under, ordinance 1314, 914, 8A, PID process, precise implementation plan. Specifically, it says, after the effective date of the rezoning to PID GDP, the applicant may file an application for a proposed implementation plan with the plan commission. My objection to moving forward is that the effective date of the rezoning has not taken place. We just approved recommending the PID to the Common Council. The Common Council has not approved it. The mayor has not signed it. There is no way the effective date of the rezoning can be yesterday, so that the applicant could have filed an application for the proposed PID. So I would, as a point of order, ask the chair to identify this item out of order and deal with not.
Tabling.
No, it's not, you can't act on it.
We don't have our city attorney here, who was supposed to be the real,
So the answer is the chair has the rule.
right,
Either, I mean, so
yeah,
the hazard to the chair is he approves that we could move forward and he moves forward illegally. And people can challenge it later.
I would say, in my opinion, your point is well taken. Since it has just been recommended tonight, and the council has not weighed in yet, that would be my ruling. So,
Which way are you ruling?
that is, this point of order is well taken, and that we should probably take up a PID tonight until.
No, we can't hear it. Yeah, there's no tabling. We can't hear
Yeah, until the council, we made a recommendation to the council needs to approve that. So. We've got a former city attorney. Sorry to put you on the spot, I won't do that. That was my, I think it seems appropriate. That we got through the rezone and that the council should weigh in. So with that,
I have a question.
it. You might want to ask if there's an objection from the staff that they prefer that we violate the ordinance.
You can't put it that way.
I wanted staff's input, but I had to make a. I mean, the biggest thing I think is the rezone. I think it's appropriate to allow the council to have a discussion now based on what the planning commission is, bring us back, but not.
Is any of this time sensitive? Does this warrant having a special meeting?
Should staff weigh in on that?
I'm not aware of what the timeline is.
And
My Might get a little longer to work with your neighbor to the east, maybe.
It'll just probably impact the cost and we won't get as good a bids if we don't get it out by end of December.
I want to impact the cost as much as losing the grant.
I think it's appropriate that if there is a time that we have a special meeting on this issue, so.
I don't understand that. We wouldn't lose USDA just on how we approve it. They don't look at it that closely. They look at the construction standards and the ADA requirements, but they're not gonna care how many parking spaces there are as long as it's got through local zoning.
Did I say loan or grant?
You said grant. I'm not worried about a grant because right now we are not in competition for any. As of today.
All right. I think we'll move that on then to item number 6, which is public hearing and review and possible recommendation regarding Delavan Lake Lawn LLC. 6.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a planned infill development, step 4 precise implementation plan TIP, 2800 East Geneva Street, tax parcel XHCLL 49, located in the manufacturing light ML zoning district with a shorehead overlay to allow for construction of a clubhouse, outdoor pool, and parking lot. Applicant Delavan Lake on memo. Since we're in the public hearing, I'll let staff start us out with this.
Sure, I'll start us out with this one. So as the mayor noted, this is regarding clubhouse for Lake Lawn. The applicant had a complete application and was ready for this meeting, and then identified a few minor changes they wish to make. And rather than bring the updated plans to you, they opted to just move this to the next meeting if the planning commission is comfortable with that.
Anyone want to make, do we need an official motion to continue the public hearing? I mean, we've opened the public hearing, we don't have to notice it again, but maybe a motion to table the public hearing.
To continue.
To continue,
Yeah.
to next.
Second.
Yes.
I'll move to continue the public hearing on a precise information plan to 2800 East Geneva Street for construction of a clubhouse, outdoor pool and parking lot to the next regular plan commission meeting on November 11th at 5 p.m.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling, signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 7 is a public hearing to review and possible recommendation regarding Delavan Lake Lawn LLC. 7.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a planned infill development, step 4 precise implementation plan PIP at 2890 East Geneva Street, tax parcel XA 4985-1, located in the manufacturing light ML zoning district, with shoreland overlay to allow for construction of a parking lot and amenities for the boat launch. Applicant Delavan Lake Lawn LLC. Here, we'll open the public hearing.
Great.
Staff, start us out.
So this is a precise implementation plan application for Lake Lawn for their boat launch and parking lot. So this proposed PIP includes 43 oversized parking spaces. So those are oversized to accommodate a vehicle towing a trailer with a boat on it. Additionally, 5 standard parking spaces on the south side of the PIP area. This would also include a small prefabricated office building that provides services to boaters. Applicant has assured us that the existing boat launch is currently open to the public and will continue to be available to the public. So no changes are proposed to the boat launch area. Namely, they're proposing the parking space, the parking lot, the new parking lot, some landscaping, lighting in that office building. I noted in my staff report that the parking lot meets all of our zoning requirements. In my staff report, I also questioned the circulation of the parking lot. There's an entry, a one-way access drive where cars entering the parking lot come through, and they would drop their boats off at the boat launch and then go up a 2-way drive to park. I questioned why that would be 2-way. I was concerned there'd be conflicts between vehicles. Since the staff report was written, we spoke with the applicant about that. And they just felt that some people back in, some people going forwards. And while the preference is to have most traffic going out or north, out of the parking lot, there may be some circumstances where folks need to go counter to that flow, and so they prefer to keep it two-way. If the plan commission is comfortable with that, I would suggest removing that condition of approval, since they understand their operations frankly better than I do, and so if they feel that two-way is what they need, I will leave that to them. A couple other notes from staff. They have added, at the request of staff, they've added landscape screening around the parking lot to block headlights from shining onto the highway and to block headlights from shining into adjacent homes. There is an area on their lighting plan where there's a little more light spillover than we typically would allow under our zoning ordinance. And so I've added a condition of approval asking them to reduce that light spillover, so they can do that by either using, moving the pole location or using different fixtures that have less illumination. Noted in the staff report, there's a prefabricated office building, approximately 96 square feet. Again, that's for services for voters. That would likely be a steel frame building with steel siding panels, something, they provided a catalog sheet of what they have in mind. No signage is proposed other than one-way signage and navigational wayfinding signage. Staff has suggested a condition of approval that the parking lot must be paved before anybody is using it, so that we can protect the lake from runoff and dust associated with unpaved surfaces. And staff recommends that the lighting plan be modified to meet the city's requirements for light spillover. With that, staff recommends approval, and then the applicant is here. If any of you have questions.
Sounds good. If there's no objection, maybe I'll, similar to what we did with the first public hearing, save our questions for staff during the deliberation, if I'm okay with that, to be consistent. But I would ask if the applicant at this time wants to add anything that's in addition to what's been provided to us. State your name and address.
Dave Sequeira, COO, 2400 East Geneva Street, Lake Lawn.
Resident?
The residence is 551 Southwind Drive, Lake Geneva.
Thank you.
Yep. So what Jackie had shared was very accurate. We had met with staff, we had gone over this. The goal is to get this parking lot done yet this year. So based on the approvals here, potential approvals at city council, we look to have this done maybe early part of November with the paving and some of the preliminary landscaping in and finishing that off in the spring. Right now, it is still access in and out to the boat launch. As you know, there's been a lot of work being done in this area. This is under Lake Lawn Management, and we'll continue to work to make it really nice.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the applicant?
So I have one question. The access road to the boat launch is on the west side of the parking lot. That's gonna be a two-way?
So the access to the boat launch would be the drive that goes around, it's the narrow drive and far east. So, yeah, far, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, so it'd be far east. They would come down a line there and then they would be able to turn around to go into the existing boat launch area. And then after their boat is launched, then we would have parking. That is extended parking for trucks,
I
trailers.
understand your flow. Thank you.
Right.
Yes, okay.
So what is your objection to making the exit one way? So the road up the diagonal one way.
So there could be times where going into a holiday weekend with public use, that there could be a long line. You see that at the township, a long line of people trying to launch. So to have this as one way down on the far east side, those individuals will be lined up. They're able to be serviced from the small little building we have, pay for their launch fee, and then continue on that way.
So why would you accommodate line cutters?
The line cutters could be somebody who's not launching. It could be somebody who already has their boat there, and in the effect of, you had a line that was maybe 10
So
trailers.
you'd be happy with a sign that said,
If it's back, it's,
cars with trailers only this way.
without trailers.
Right, cars with trailers. So how many, you have 5 parking places, right?
No, those 5 parking is really for staff use.
So who would go down there who didn't have a trailer then, Dave?
It would be somebody who has a seasonal slip with us. So their boat is
Why
already in
wouldn't
the
they
water.
go on the other parking places? At the. Cause you wouldn't want them to use, you wouldn't want them to use a long space. So
launch?
in Florida, I live right next to
Yeah,
a launch, so I witnessed this, so I just.
so this parking is going to be used for multiple reasons. There's people that are launching. Those are the people with the public. They're gonna have the park there temporary with their vehicle, their truck, their trailer. We're also gonna have this as accessible for people that have their boat in the water already for the season. It could also be some overflow parking for some visitors to some of the residents at the Harbor Club. So it may not have anything to do with the boat launch.
But they'd have to back into the parking diagonal space.
No, in that case, if there was not a backup line of people launching, they would still continue down the east side.
I don't understand why you're trying to create this option for, but anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question for staff.
Okay,
I had one more thing to add, if I may.
yes, I'll let you go first. Yeah.
Okay, so on the agenda, this was the first time I noticed this, was just tonight. The address on here is listed at 2890. And I'm not familiar with that address. As far as I've known, there's been no address change to the main parcel of Lake Lawn, which is 2400 East Geneva Street. So I would just want that considered in the motion to make sure we have not a clerical error there.
Yeah, the next one does say 2800, this one said 2890, so I thought it was a little odd too when I read it. Thanks for that clarification. And Kevin, I was just gonna ask some other for the public for and against, and then close the public hearing, if you're cool with that. Are there any other citizens in attendance who wish to speak on this issue for or against? And I would just ask you to come up, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Robert Betzer, and I'm the president of the library board. I came here thinking, looking at this, a change, or at least approval in zoning, and I'm very disappointed with the way the board's handled this. We worked very hard massaging the area so that we could accommodate as many cars as possible. We hired a really good architectural firm. And now we're thinking around about how many cars are we gonna have here? Lake Geneva has about 5 spaces for that library. Elkhorn has very limited space, and we're arguing over a space here and a space there. Just be glad we're getting probably the nicest library in Walworth County is gonna be right here in Delavan. It's going to attract people, and I'll gladly walk 60 spaces extra to get there.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anyone wishing to speak about the Lake Lawn boat launch issue, either in favor or against it, in that public hearing now? Hearing no other comments, I would close the public hearing. And I would go ahead and entertain some sort of a motion.
Before we do the motion, can we get a clarification on the date?
Oh, yeah, the address should be
2800, not 2400.
No,
not
they're
2890.
different tax parcels. And
This boat launch is the same tax parcel as the whole main tax parcel of Lake Lawn. So
2400.
2400.
Okay, sorry. So not 2800.
That's what I had to take it.
Thank you.
Kevin's still there.
Yes, Kevin.
Jackie?
Yes.
So on page 46 of our staff memo, it says the precise implementation plan under consideration is lot 1. There's a pause, and then on page 47, it says lot 3.
Oh, yeah. That should say lot 1. That's a mistake.
Okay, so we're being asked to act on what?
The boat launch on the east side of the property.
But we can only act on described lots, right? So what's the described lot we're supposed to act on?
We have the tax parcel is identified in the staff report, which aligns with the tax parcel used in the applicant's application form. So my typo shouldn't slow this process down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for the clarity. Any other questions for staff? Anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the precise implementation plan for the property at 2400 East Geneva Street to allow for a boat launch parking lot, including the findings as listed under the required findings by the Plan Commission section of the report, and any additional conditions of approval recommended by staff or the Plan Commission.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion?
I'd like to make an amendment to that
Okay,
motion. Noting, I would like my amendment to be noting to remove the condition to make the area where the oversized angle parking spaces are provided must be shown for one-way traffic, and just deleting that.
Remove it completely.
Yeah.
That gives them the ability to have that flow
Down the center.
That's flexible. I'll accept that.
That's what
there's a second to that amendment? Any discussion on the proposed amendment? Did you,
The amendment is to, just for the two-way traffic down the center.
Just remove that.
right between the two sections.
Because her conditional use said one way.
Right,
One way
but
around the
she
outside.
also said that they, around the outside still goes one way.
everyone clear on the amendment? There's a motion and a second, all in favor of the amendment signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign,
No.
motion passes 5-1. So, we've got an amended motion, everyone clear on the amendment, or on the motion, the new motion? All those in favor of the amended motion, signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 8.1, item number 8, reviewing possible recommendation regarding Blue Oak Holdings LLC. 8.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use petition to allow for construction of a 3-unit multifamily residential building defined as a townhouse land use at 111 North Terrace Street, tax parcel X0P33, in the residential mixed 8RM-8 zoning district, again, applicant Blue Oak Holdings LLC. This time I would open the public hearing and ask staff to start us off.
Great, this is a conditional use permit. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a true conditional use permit that was clear and simple, so I'm grateful for that. This is a project on 111 North Terrace Street that staff has been reviewing for several months, working with the applicant. They originally proposed 4 units and we're having trouble meeting some of the zoning code requirements and minimum landscape surface area requirements. They have since scaled it back to 3 units, which greatly helped in their proposal, and so What we're looking at now is a 3-unit multifamily building. This is located within a residential neighborhood. The property is currently vacant. All surrounding properties are zoned RM8, residential mixed. This is near the central business zoning district, but it's not within central business and it's not within our downtown design overlay. The building, it consists of 3 units, as I stated. 2 of them are on the front of the building. They're 2-story townhome style units. And then the 3rd unit is only on the 2nd floor. It's above the carport that's integrated into the design of the building. The applicant was responsive to our comments to make sure that this design was consistent with surrounding neighborhood design. So it's residential in character, it has front porch. I think it will fit in nicely with the neighborhood. The carport, which is accessed on the north side of the property, which is accessed by a new driveway. That carport includes 3 covered spaces. And then behind each one of those covered spaces is a surface parking space. So each unit would have 2 assigned parking spaces. One would be in the carport and one would be behind their own assigned carport space. So they'd be parking in themselves, but they would not be parking in their neighbors. And then that's up to the property management to enforce and assign parking spaces. We also have proposed landscaping, including sugar maples, linden trees, a mix of shrubs around the building perimeter. They've met and exceeded our minimum requirements for landscaping points. They have light fixtures on the exterior of the building, which meets our requirements. And then overall, the site plan meets our zoning ordinance requirements. Staff recommends approval. The only, with a few conditions here, the one I'll mention is that just ensuring that those fixtures, exterior lighting fixtures on the building meet our dark sky requirements. Thank you.
Okay.
Jackie, is the applicant here?
I am not.
Yes.
Great.
I was just gonna ask if you, as the applicant, would like to come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and add anything that isn't already in our packet, or at least take questions from the commission.
Hi, my name is Ryan Ahern and I represent Ahern Enterprise Contracting. And I'm here on behalf of Blue Oak Holdings. First, I want to say thank you to the staff for helping me and guiding me through this process and be able to get all the hiccups and fine tuning of this project. It's been quite an experience. And from before, I'm grateful that they made me do that. As far as the lighting goes, we don't have a problem with that. We're using Adams Electric out there. They proposed a lighting plan that's in place. It's pretty straightforward. Do you guys have any questions at all?
Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you for being here. Sure, willingness to take questions. Are there any other citizens in attendance at this time who wish to speak either in favor or against as it relates to this issue? And I would just ask you to state your name and address for the record.
I'm Susan Dale. I own the 2 properties on McDowell Street. So this new property is going to be right up above from me. And what I'd like to do is ask if there would be a retaining wall. So for parking, especially from in the past, people would back up toward my property and there's quite a decline there. So I'd like to have some type of a retaining wall there. It's a hill, so ice, winter, we never know what the conditions are gonna be. So I really think a retaining wall would be very helpful for everybody. And then also, I don't know how you're going to be addressing garbage. In the past, people, I know right now we have the garbage company, you've got your own dumpsters that everybody has to comply with. They all have covers on them, so that's a big plus. Before, garbage went all over the neighborhood, so we all had to go back and do the cleanup. Another concern, I think if we have the retaining wall put up there, it's going to help deter any water issues that we would be incurring. because of the hill, the water is always coming down. My one property at 56, I have a special drain that is in front of the home. So that way it stays away from inside of the house and the garage underneath the home. So those are a couple comments that I would like to make sure that we all address.
I can speak to
Yes,
your,
if you could.
your property's to the north of this property?
I got 56 and 58 McDowell Street, so I'm right down below.
To the north, so, up,
Yeah.
up terrace.
Towards the lake.
Toward the lake.
Yeah, the lake,
Thank you.
yeah.
So, there's currently a retaining wall on the adjacent property to the north. I'm not sure if that extends all the way to the next property. In terms of water flow, we are requiring curbing for the entire driveway and parking lot area, so that should control flow of water. And then you've got additional stormwater concerns. Mark Wendorf is here. We are requiring, and the applicant is providing a dumpster at the end of the driveway, which would include an enclosure, lid, and a gate. And it matches the house. It matches the house.
Any questions from commissioners, either or staff?
Is the public hearing closed?
I just thought maybe someone would have questions based on the additional information we heard during, or
So what questions do you want asked now?
if there's any questions. I don't have any questions myself, so. Okay.
So Jackie, why is a conditional use required here?
For the multifamily use within this district. I think apartments, multiplexes, townhomes all require
And
conditional use.
it would normally, what is the zoning by right?
Offhand, I don't recall, but I would imagine probably single families by right and multifamilies is by conditional use.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
My other question is, how come we weren't provided elevations, drawings and interior drawings?
Elevations should have been in your packet.
No,
They
there
were-
was a description of the elevations.
Staff reviewed elevations and floor plans, so if those are omitted, I
And
apologize.
previously, when we have permitted conditional uses for these kind of buildings, we've been asked to, we've looked at floor plans, et cetera. And one of the biggest issues with this is really parking, right? And so understanding the floor plans and actually what the total capacity of these apartments is impacts that decision. How come we weren't provided?
I think it was just an omission.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other citizens wish to speak either in favor or against this proposal at this time? Seeing none, then I would close the public hearing. And, are there any questions, additional questions for staff? Was there entertain a motion one way or another? Motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend the recommend the conditional use findings is listed under the recommended conditional use findings section of the report and the conditional use request for approved development and construction of a 3-unit multiplex at 111 North Terrace Street within the residential mixed RM8 zoning district, subject to the conditions of approval as listed under recommended conditions of approval and report applicant rules LLC.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Kevin.
I don't think the commission is properly informed to approve this motion. And the reason I don't think we're properly informed is that we have no way to estimate the driving population definition of the 3-unit multifamily residence. And when you look at the plan for 111 North Terrace Street, while staff says there is adequate parking, it's pretty clear there's only space for 2 units underneath the parking enclosure, potentially 1 parking unit on the driveway connected to it, which is a total of 3. Any other parking is gonna block it. Our normal requirement is multiples of cars per unit. And so I don't think there's adequate parking, but the reason I object and I'm gonna vote no is I don't think we have adequate information to make the good decision.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I'm also disappointed at the fact that we don't see a floor plan here. We really don't have the ability to look at this and look internally to see how the structures are gonna be laid out. I see an overhead view of what's going on, but nothing internally. And we've looked at a number of other plans on the planning commission, and we've seen that there's been adequate information presented. So especially if you have something and you just didn't present it, I don't understand why.
Yes, if you want to address that.
Do you want to speak to that? I don't believe that floor plans are a requirement. When we do receive them, we look at whether each unit has individual access, and we look at number of bedrooms to understand parking requirements. So I believe we do have narrative description in the packet of 3 units. And so if we are providing 2 parking spaces per unit, I would consider that parking requirement being met.
So where are the 6 parking units on the property, Jack?
There's 2 in the car, 3 under the carport, and then 1.
No, it's 30 feet wide.
30 feet wide. So you park there perpendicular to, you drive in, turn
How
right.
wide do you think it's car?
Excuse me? Our standard parking space is 9 by 18 feet, and they've provided that. And then there's an additional parking space in the driveway behind each one of those parking spaces.
So that none of the initial 3 can back out.
So as I stated at the beginning, you're only parking in your own household. You're not parking in your neighbors. And we don't regulate that as part of the zoning code doesn't regulate that. That's up to the property owner. You could park yourself in if you would like to.
So part of the reason, you're right, I mean, and there is obviously an attempt by the staff to prevent the commission from looking at building plans. They're not submitting them, they don't have to, okay? And however, they're important parts of information for the commission to make its determinations on other matters. You informed us just now, which wouldn't have been implied in the conversation, that you expect the need for 2 parking places per outlet. I mean, per apartment, right? That's not in the discussion. Nowhere.
You're saying the staff report doesn't say that?
Right. And so it's a good example of why more information from the staff is better.
Well, I certainly did not intend to keep any information from the plan commission. We usually put the entire packet or the entire application into the packets.
Okay, so so were there elevations
Yes.
provided?
Yes,
Right,
and floor plans.
On the map.
No, that's not an
Elevation.
elevation, Brian. The elevation is the front and the side.
The elevation.
Oh, the
drawings.
elevation like that, not the,
Yeah,
not the,
showing the
not the
building
contours, okay.
design. Yeah.
And were the floor plans submitted by the
Floor
developer?
plans and elevations were submitted by the applicant.
And were they shared with the commission?
I am not sure.
No, they were not.
I believe that was an innocent omission. In fact, I described the elevations in the staff report
I
as
know
if
you
you,
did.
as if you had them.
But we did.
All right, any other discussion?
Jackie, I have a question. When the lady brought up her concerns about that retaining wall, I had that very same concern because her property is quite a bit lower than this property. I see there's a 5 foot, is a 5 foot space between curbing and property line, according to my map here anyway.
At least, on the north side at least, yeah.
Yeah, and is the curbing go on both sides of the driveway?
Yes, I believe so.
I don't see curbing on the south side.
Just the north side.
Just,
Sure.
There's curbing on the north side. And my concern was, not only water flow, but snow removal as well. I don't wanna be throwing stuff from his property onto the property. So, I'm not saying you need a retaining wall, I'm saying it's a concern.
do you want to, either of you want to speak to snow removal or curbing?
And I believe, Bruce, on the site plan near the garbage enclosure, the dumpster enclosure, they did design an area for snow storage because we restricted that from the landscape area.
Hey, Mark, if you looked at
Hey, where those
what was
Where those
submitted,
little trees are,
I'm sorry, Ryan.
There's a hatched area on the site plan.
Okay. You good, Bruce? Ken?
Ryan, it's 6:30.
Yeah, I got a little bit of leeway here, I gotta get my order, but thank you, I've been watching too.
Have you looked at what was sent to the commission?
As far as drainage,
No. Yeah, the physical image that was sent to the commission.
You're asking if the commission got floor plans and elevations.
No, whether the commission, what picture the commission got about the property.
the site plan, yes.
Yeah.
Not sure what the question is.
You think it's clear?
As far as drainage, yes. And the site plan layout, yes.
As far as parking?
Yes.
Where's the parking indicated on the activity that was sent to the commission?
I don't believe it's
You
defined out.
don't believe it's shown?
Right, but,
Did you have another question?
No, I got a detail. They had 3 parking stalls behind each of the cars in the car stall, which is 6 stalls is what I got. Is it inconvenient to the person who's in the car stall and the one behind it? Yes, it is. But it's an inconvenient in my own driveway too. 3 cars in a 2-car garage, and one's always in the way. I don't have a concern with that.
All right, any other discussion, otherwise we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes. 5-1. Moving on to item number 9.1. Consider exterior of a proposed accessory structure in the downtown historical overlay zoning district at 67 East Walworth Avenue, applicant Ryan Walkerman.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is at 67 East Walworth Avenue. It's for an accessory structure. And there is, I don't know how many years ago, there was a slab that was put in for this structure. So there currently is a concrete base. It was an accessory structure that was approved a long time ago through conditional use, and that has since expired. Ryan Lagerman is in the audience tonight, and he is here to, you're also here because this is in the downtown design overlay, and this committee oversees that. So if you have any questions, I'll have Ryan come up. And I believe you brought some samples and you have the drawing.
Thank you. Brian Lockerman, 2154 Blue Heron Drive, Delavan. You all have the drawing. I brought a sample of the vinyl siding that is the exact match to the house on the property as well. So I'm able to match. The plan is the north, south, and west sides of the garage to match the house exactly. And the street facing east side, as you can see in the drawing, to have an eyebrow and give it a old timey look that would blend in well with Tower Park and the rest of the area there.
Any questions for Ryan? Yes.
Ryan, you own 67 East Walworth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there an easement for that property?
Not to my knowledge.
That was Larry's place, right? He's the one who wanted that.
Correct.
Added, yeah.
Correct. Are you speaking of the L shape, the old Temperance House property? That's not my property.
I know, but is there an easement through your property to that property?
They have their property is L shaped and it's not an easement.
Okay, thank you.
To my knowledge.
Staff can clarify that.
I would agree with them.
Okay. Any other questions for Ryan? No memory. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the proposed accessory structure in the downtown historic overlay zoning district at 67 East Walworth Avenue.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to excuse myself as a little past 7:30 at this point. And as I stated earlier, only bring you the gavel down there, Kevin, or Kevin?
I can. We're gonna move to item 9.2. Consider a single lot redivision request by certified survey map to combine the three tax parcels of 702 Madison Drive. Mark?
The commission has in front of you a proposed certified survey map. Again, this would combine, right now, the house that's existing sits on 3 different tax parcels. This would create 2 different subdivisions. So in order to combine them, they have to either do it by a CSM or a subdivision plat.
Does anyone have any questions for Mark? Okay, I'd consider a motion to approve the recommended common council approval, move to recommend to the common council approval of CSM to combine the 3 tax parcels of 702 Madison Drive dated October 2, 2024.
I made that motion.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Item 9.3. Consider approval of city information sign for 404 East Walworth Avenue in the downtown design overlay zoning district. Jackie, you want to speak first?
I'd be happy to. So, had we gone through the PIP for the library this evening, I would have described to you the signage proposed for the library as a whole. And I can still do that if you would like.
But
this agenda item is pertaining to the city information sign that the library is requesting. So currently the library has a monument
so
sign.
Jackie, may I ask, is it in order?
I am not sure. I think the fact that if the library was coming forward with this city information sign request and they weren't expanding, it would definitely be in order and appropriate. So I feel that it's independent of the expansion, and that's my opinion. Planning Commission
Okay,
could consider it.
so who's the applicant?
applicant is FEH Design and the Public Library.
My question is, why do we approve signs in the building that we haven't done PIP for?
Right.
I think that's valid.
And so the electronic sign is one item, right, Bruce?
What's that?
The electronic sign is one item, but this describes other signage too.
I'll clarify, this item is only for the monument, the proposed monument sign that has an electronic screen, not any building signage.
So it's only one.
It's just one, it's freestanding. I think you could make a case that it's part of the expanded library. You could also make a case that it's not.
Okay, so what I'm gonna suggest right here is, the commission's gonna pause. You might wanna ask the applicant whether or not they wanna proceed before the PIP.
You want to ask me them that
Yeah,
now?
turn around.
I think we should wait on the sign until the PIP is done, but what would you like to do?
That's your recommendation, that's what we do.
So just to be clear to the, I'm sorry, Matt, just to be clear to the applicant, pausing doesn't have an impact at all on future consideration.
So I'm not sure.
Matt wants to
Sure.
share too.
I'm not sure that pausing this particular thing makes sense, because we can look at this as an independent item. And what we're looking at right now is just approval as to whether or not this meets the requirements for our signage and everything else like that. So we could look at this independently, any other decisions that we made or tabled, and not have this later on come up.
Okay.
If we're taking a look at it.
So, we're already here. I'm gonna ask.
I'm here too, so.
Okay, so you
I'm
guys
good,
wanna
let's
move
go for
forward with it without the PIP and Jackie's recommendation?
Great.
Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
So this is a little unusual, and so I'm gonna explain to you why we're looking at this, why the Plan Commission is reviewing the sign and why we're reviewing it separately from the rest of the signage. Basically, because they have an electronic screen that's considered an electronic message center under our zoning ordinance, and we don't permit those in our downtown design ordinance or overlay. And there's one exception for that, and that's if you're considered a city information sign. So provided the sign includes information of, essential information to the public, you may be considered for a screen. And so that requires a special review process by the Planning Commission. You'll see in my staff report that city information signs require an operational agreement between the city property owner and the city tourism commission. So we don't have that in hand, but we have that as a condition of approval, just to ensure that those messages do meet that public purpose. We also need to find that the character of the sign complements the principal structure and complements the downtown in general. And so the applicant is here and can share some more details about proposed materials and how those complement. Additionally, I won't read these here, but we do have built-in requirements on electronic message centers that would apply to this sign and any sign that has an electronic screen. So they can't change, they can't change more than once every 10 seconds. It can't be flashing or animated. They have to automatically dim at night so they're not too bright. So as proposed, the sign complies with all of those requirements, but I just wanted to make you aware that those are built into the code. So I think at this point, so staff recommends approval based on what we know about the sign as proposed, meets our size requirements, place sighting requirements, height requirements. But I'd like to turn it over to the applicant to provide a little more information about the materials and how it fits in with the building.
And we're talking like just across the street here at the church, it's gonna be real similar to what that one is basically.
In concept, yes.
Does the applicant want to speak?
Yes, please, may I?
Are you the applicant?
I can represent the city.
The Delavan Public Library
Sorry,
is
I
listed
need to
as the
represent.
applicant.
May I represent the library, Michelle? Yes, you may. Does that count?
Thank you.
Okay. You guys thought that this was gonna be easy, didn't you?
Excuse me?
Oh, okay.
Excuse me?
I was just wondering if you had expectations that this sign review was gonna be very, easy in that it wasn't a city message sign, but I did bring a sample of a not used on a different project sample of what this would look like in the daytime and at the nighttime. May I distribute this? Okay, it was pulled together after the information for the packet had been assembled, at Jackie's suggestion. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So it would have a stone base that would match the base of the historic library, the Indiana limestone. It would have, stone then up the sides with a metal cap. So the message board would be in the stone, the metal cap would be on top, and then there would be pressed letters. So there would be metal letters along the top, but then like clear acrylic behind it. I did bring some samples of some metal, if you wanted to see. It would just be, you know, a shiny tan metal along with the stone, so tan with the message board that would show city messages and library programming messages, probably the date and the weather as well. With the press letters at the top that just say Delavan Public Library, that would be internally illuminated in that metal cap and light up at night.
So at night, the electronic sign will basically be just show the name of the library that you're suggesting.
I can't speak to what the message sign would say, but the sign itself would just say Delavan Public Library, that would be lit up. The message sign, I don't know if there are hours for it, we would adhere to the city guidelines for when it could be lit.
So
But that,
it'll be lit all the time with rotating messages every 10 seconds.
or 15 seconds.
Are there additional questions?
No, I have no more.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any additional comments for the applicant? Okay, is there a motion related to the matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend common council approval of the city informational sign for the property at 404 East Walworth Avenue in the downtown design overlay zoning district, including the findings as listed under the recommended findings section of the report and any additional conditions of approval recommended by staff or the plan commission.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. May I hear any comments from other commissioners? Yeah.
So I think this makes a lot of sense. It is part of the city as it's the city library. And this clearly fits within the realm of established precedents that's already in place for city informational. That to me makes the most sense. I also like the fact that it is a new library and we adhere to tradition in the city. But at some point, you have to acknowledge what's going on currently as that becomes the new tradition. And having this as a current and fresh look for the library, I can't see why we wouldn't want that.
Any additional questions? Okay, Jackie, I have one. I think it wasn't clear whether or not the motion was for just the information sign or the complete sign package. So could you
Yes.
please clarify?
So the agenda item is for just the monument sign that's designated the city information sign. It would not approve any of the other signage proposed as part of the library expansion, just this one sign.
And to be completely clear, the packet included the signs
All the signs,
on
yes.
the other library faces, and they are not included.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a great point of clarification. Those will be considered and approved as part of the PIP.
Yes. Yeah, I was not clear. I thought it was all the signs. That's why I wanted to postpone it.
I apologize for that.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. We'll move on to item 9.4. Consider a planned infill development amendment to the official zoning map for step 3 general development plan of 207 through 433 South Wright Street, tax parcel XA 4527-2, located in the business regional zoning district with a wellhead protection overlay to allow for future development of commercial power parcels and expanded indoor storage land use. Applicant Star Delavan LLC. Nope, they're not recognized first.
Oh, pardon me.
Jackie, please proceed.
Great. So before us, we have a proposed amendment to the GDP for the Wright Street Shopping Center. Oops, I have my wrong page open. Here we go. So as the commissioners will recall, the city approved a GDP and PIP in 2020 for this project, for this site, which allowed for a certain amount of indoor storage. And as you will recall, you have received several amendments over the last several months that have not been approved. And so the applicant has come forward with a revised GDP and PIP amendment. I'll let the applicant speak.
No, I'm gonna ask you to summarize the differences.
I will, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So the differences that we're seeing is that at the rear of the main storage center building, there was a approved expansion in 2020. They have removed that proposed expansion, thus removing the total, or that would reduce the amount of square feet of storage area. They've also rearranged the proposed out parcels. So we still have 2 out parcels shown, but they are oriented to, oh gosh, is that Wright Street? They're on the west side of the property. Those again, as previously, those would be proposed for commercial or any use that's allowed in the BR zoning district. If you recall, at a previous proposal by the applicant, we had identified a number of outstanding items from the GDP and PIP. Applicant has agreed to address those as they had previously, so those are being carried forward into this as well. So that includes stormwater management features behind the building, correcting the public sidewalk on Wright Street, addressing the maintenance of the fence, the eastern property line, and adding dumpster enclosures as required by zoning. Additionally, just a point of clarification, it's only the red area on their site plan where they're now showing expansion of, did I get that right? Yeah, expansion of indoor storage. Basically, well, the way we're seeing it is that if this GDP were approved, it would reduce the amount of indoor storage from what was approved in 2020. Just to remind us all that the out parcels would not be created as part of this tonight's proceedings. They'd have to come back with a CSM to create those out parcels if they were approved by the city, or if the GDP was approved by the city. The applicant has proposed enlarged landscape islands in the parking lot. So we talked about that at a previous meeting. Those are provided in this proposal as well. Likewise, the applicant has agreed to update the lighting wall packs to comply with the city's ordinance. I think I talked about the fence. So then a quick note about parking. We will expect those 2 out parcels to, what I'm going to say, park themselves. So a restaurant or drive-through or retail establishment is proposed on one of those out parcels. We will require that parcel to meet parking requirements for that use. And so if we just consider the big lot with the inlet with the multi-tenant shopping center by itself, that includes indoor storage, and that also includes a number of areas designated for commercial uses that are not storage. We are a little short on parking for that inline shopping center. When you only consider the master parcel that includes the multi-tenant shopping center. However, as I said before, we're expecting those out parcels to meet parking requirements. I've also noted that the O'Reilly Auto Parts out parcel actually exceeds minimum parking requirements. And as I think you all agree that this site has considerable excess parking currently. And so I feel that it's appropriate to allow for reduced parking to achieve the other goals that the city is trying to achieve, which is to have more commercial on Wright Street, and reduce the amount of indoor storage that we're approving here.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
I think I've covered it, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so Dale, I ask you to speak to the applicant, and then we'll have commission questions for both of you.
I'm Dale Thorpe. I've appeared before you in the past. You've seen this one before. We've gone through a long process with your city staff, numerous meetings dating back to February. That resulted in filings in April, June, September with city staff. The project itself, as you heard from Jackie, has evolved quite a bit. If this is approved, here recommended for approval and approved by the council, this would result in about a 9,000 square foot net reduction in the amount of indoor self-storage. And it would result in an overall commitment on this property, long-term commitment to retail being the paramount use, the busiest use on site. That would take place in both the units fronting onto the parking lot. It will also take place in the two new outlots that are being proposed eventually. These are just use areas now, not outlots. I'm told, and I think there's been some discussion with your staff already, that there is a buyer negotiations now for one of these two use areas who will almost immediately be filing a CSM for consideration. You're going to see this again. At that time, you're also going to see their zoning request, and you're going to be able to work through the details of that at that time. None of that is off the table. All of that is yet to come. This is the first step in several steps yet to come to authorize one of those two lots to be sold and developed. Jackie summarized the other conditions of approval. My clients agreed to all of those conditions. And I stress again that if this is approved, this is a substantial reduction in the amount of self-storage on this property on a kind of a permanent basis. It's done at this point. The rest of this property is going to be long-term retail. The parking is all laid out on the site plan. Staff has given us a long list back on August 29th, got a long list of requests for the site plan amendments. We tried to address all those, but what was filed on September 26th. It's all laid out on here, so this will become kind of a song sheet that we work from going forward that you have in the site plan that should be in your packets tonight. So we've come a long way. It's a much improved site plan. It's addressed your concerns, the city's concerns, staff concerns. As we've heard them, we've written them all down. We've tried to address every single one, and this is what we have before us. We ask for your approval tonight.
Thank you, Dale. Jackie, if you could join Dale at the podium, and we'll entertain questions.
I have a few,
Okay.
other than you're here again.
Good to see you all, though.
Yeah, the reduction in indoor storage is correct, but the indoor storage you took away was the stuff that was behind the current buildings. And now it's moved behind where Slumberton used to be.
It's both removed from the back of the former Pick and Save store.
The placement of it, and so much the amount.
And the back of the Dollar Tree store. That's all been taken off the table and replaced with a site location at the back of the former Slumberland store, smaller by 9,000 square feet.
It's not the addition is smaller, it's where it is. So before it was behind what you had already approved, and now you're going into a new space. And you also said in your memo that you would sign saying we never ask for any more indoor storage. But here we are trying to amend the GDP, and we haven't even completed the first one yet in phase 2 and phase 3. Outlot number 3, where it's placed right now, actually restricts the view of the store that's directly behind it. Therefore, making that retail space not as valuable as it was before lot 3 was placed there. Before it was over behind the auto parts store.
To clarify your question, Bruce, because a lot of the audience doesn't have the document in front of them, right? When you're saying it reduces the view of retail space, what are you speaking to?
Exactly.
No, what are you speaking to?
Lot number 3.
He's referring to the lot we
okay.
had
Got it.
based on.
Lot
Got
number
it.
3.
Thank you.
It reduces the visibility of the retail stores behind it.
This was not our idea. This was the city's idea, was to
Well,
move that outlet.
The city didn't ask us about that.
And we're not
Last
talking,
time, we turned it down completely, so I don't know how they came up with that idea.
we're not talking about the outlots right now, we're talking about the
I
expansion.
know, but once we approve GDP, the lot is approved to be there.
Okay, thank you.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry
we
for-
don't know what's gonna go in.
Bruce, I'm sorry for
but it
interrupting.
is approved.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
So you're right, we don't know what's gonna go there, but it'll be
Right.
approved that something could go
Okay. I misunderstood what you were asking about, sorry.
there. And lot number 2 is already approved in the previous GDP.
In a different form, that's correct. Yep.
So I would disapprove your plan. You know, I don't, I think that Q Smart's intention is to take over the entire shopping center, and that only proves to me what their future intent is. By restricting all that visual to the retail stores behind it, the red area is taking up retail space, and I know they rented the front out, but they could have rented the whole building. It was their choice to move to rent half of it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Other questions, Matt?
Bruce covered a lot of what I was initially concerned about. I'm very happy that some concessions have been made in order to reduce storage. Again, I reiterate that in the past, this went through and it was approved. I have no problem moving forward with the previous approval. The council made a decision, it went through at that particular moment in time. I can move forward and I have no problem with that. My issue is also provision number 3. A GDP approval shall be for a period of 5 years, beginning from the date of common council approval. Why is that necessary to be put in place?
That's city code.
So Matt, your follow-up question?
City code for the amendment.
For any GDP approval, any PIP approval, your code specifies a 5-year term.
So the effect of that is to, why are we rushing this?
We're a long way from rushing this. We filed in April.
When I look at this and I look at what has happened in the past, I see that there's just dragging the feet of getting things approved. I see that as there was an opportunity to increase storage, which was already approved by the city. And the decision was made not to do that for whatever business reasons there are. My assumption is that it's based on cost. And when it's based on cost, that creates a big problem. Because now you've got a situation where equity is being bleeding out of the building, of the community, and it's just being dragged along those lines. I'm not comfortable moving forward with this, but I am far more comfortable in the previous plan that was brought in place. I see positive movement. I do like the ability for some of this to be converted into the new idea of some of the mini malls are no longer being functional. Some of the stand-up stores are now taking the place of current retail around the country. There's opportunity growth here. It has a front-facing, like the extra lots that are in place. They can provide their own parking. It gives the opportunity for expansion. You can change the dynamics so that they're both front-facing and rear-facing. You can utilize all the parking that is in place and still get the storage that's there. So I like that. I see progress in terms of the outlots and how they're presented. When I look at this, I don't necessarily look at the existing structure in terms of commercial space. I'm also looking at the potential for commercial space from the lots. And everything in between can form a channel where parking is made available. So there's a lot of possibility there. But again, I agree with Bruce. We haven't seen a plan. There isn't a plan. Now, the argument is being made that we need to have approval for these lots before we can market that. Because the people that are moving or want to come in terms of business want an assurance from the city that that's going to be a nice, easy process. I can get behind that. I can't get behind putting a 5-year term on something that we don't have any plan for, with the expectation that the very first thing that happens is storage goes in, because that's the only priority that I see. Because that's the history that we saw. The bare minimum was done in order to get the storage up and running. All of the rest of the provisions are still not done. Those are my concerns. It has nothing to do with the project in place. It has nothing to do with what's being presented. I see possibility here. Help me get some faith.
If I may,
Go ahead, Dale.
What I see with this plan is my client listening to your concerns, coming back with a plan that shifts the pendulum away from self-storage, reduces the amount to the one space that's most workable economically to develop for self-storage. That's the rear of the slumberland store, and give up on the idea of enlarging 40-year-old buildings by adding narrow growth areas behind the former Pick and Save and the Dollar Tree store. But overall, reducing that amount, putting in more retail, showing more retail out by the highway where it's most visible will enhance the property, bring traffic to the site, which will help the properties in the rear. There's already an applicant who's been in contact with your city staff about one of these two outlots. If that develops, the other one will sell too, and this property will grow, and it'll grow in the direction of retail, which is what we've heard from you. This should be the priority, and my client has heard that and agreed. Had some long discussions and is reducing the self-storage and increasing the retail. That's what this plan shows. That's what it's meant to show. Retail is what's important on site.
Thank you, Dale. Any other comments from commission members or questions?
Just one more.
Thank you, Matt.
When you talk about retail, how are you ensuring adequate quality is being maintained in order to develop the spaces that are available? And I'm gonna clarify that. I've seen what, there's a retail space right now, I believe it's a martial arts studio, and they're renting in that area, and I had the ability to go and take a look at it. And it was nothing like I expected. And when I expect to see retail space, I expect to see solid walls. I don't expect to see small partitions that are made of like channeled metal that looks like pole barn material. To me, that looks like it's temporary. And it's designed to be temporary because I have no idea whether or not those clients are going to stay there long term. So when I see that the owner has an expectation of fast turnover. I also see that the floor wasn't done. In my professional trade, that's dangerous. There's trip hazards all over the place. Those are all aspects that we don't oversee. But when I look at it, I don't see any quality. I see bleeding of equity out of a building.
I have one more question, or one more thought, I should say.
Go ahead, Bruce.
You said that the client is trying to show us that they're for retail. You heard my concerns about lot number 3 and it closing off the exposure to the buying buildings. My question is, has the tenant ever fixed the parking lot lights? Or are they still all in the dark after 5 o'clock? I think they're still all in the dark.
I don't think that's the case. I drive through that parking lot. My office goes right around that corner and I've not noticed a dark parking lot, but the intent is to have it well lit. In fact, lighting is one of the conditions of approval.
Hold on. Let's ask the fact. Mark?
I do believe that their timer was off here for a while, as it's getting dark earlier. I think their parking lot lights are coming on probably at like 6 o'clock, when it's.
They were on when I moved on the other night.
Thank you.
And my other concern was the diagonal parking in front of Tractor Supply. I mean, why hasn't that been fixed a long time ago? If you come down there, you all run the wrong direction. It indicates that the main entrance to Tractor Supply is coming off of Highway 50, not off West Street. There's just little things I think that they indicate that I don't think they're that concerned about retail.
Okay, so, Dale, instead of you asking that question, I'm gonna direct it to staff, who would have directed how that should have been struck is. Mark?
If you're talking down in front of Tractor Supply, I believe that is shown on the site plan to be corrected.
In a new,
Yes,
not on the old GDP.
that is correct.
The old GDP maintained the old Kmart striping,
That is correct.
right? And the old GDP didn't require a restriping, right?
Or the.
I'm sorry for that,
Or
or
the-
Hurricane Marco Island.
Yeah, or the,
I
or,
said with carrots.
yeah, or the landscaping, they are adding the landscaping to bring that section of the parking lot up to the current landscape requirements.
On the new GDP.
Right.
Yeah, my statement was the fact that I don't think that that they're that concerned about retail. Their only concern is to expand indoor storage. And they say they're gonna sign a letter saying they don't want any more indoor storage. But here we are amending the GDP before they even complete all three phases of the first GDP. So their letter saying they're not gonna expand indoor storage falls on false ears in my concern.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Jackie.
One thing I forgot to note in my overview was that the applicant has agreed to install all of those outstanding items, so the fence, the landscape islands, lighting, and other things by June 30th, 2025. And so there is a time frame. They agreed to put a time frame on themselves to address some of those outstanding items.
Thank you very much. If the commission would allow me to speak from the chair. Okay. You know that's a rule.
Yes.
Okay.
In certain situations, if the structure of the commission is set up in that way, then yes.
So, I would like to just share some thoughts about this because, like Bruce and Will, I've been on this since the initial extension, permission for storage was provided here. And there's no question across time that the proposal has changed dramatically and rapidly. From my perspective, there are two things for the commission to consider. One, the commitment on the part of the applicant to limit indoor storage at this space via agreeing both by commitment to the development plan and requirements for the future lot sales that no indoor storage can take place at them. So one of the considerations the commission has had across time and the council had when it heard the matter last month, I think, was what is the commitment to reduction in storage? Since that period of time, the applicant has gone from roughly 20,000 square feet of additional storage to 12,000. So a substantial reduction. The second component that that the commission has consistently said is we want to see the developer have a commitment to retail. The commitment has been expressed, in my mind, in a different way than what the historic, and I go back to my wife shopping for my kids' clothes when it was a Kmart, and Bruce back to Pick and Save being our favorite grocery store. It's gone back to recognizing that retail has changed substantially. So the fact that the developer has maintained 2 large box retailers here in an environment where there are a few of them, the 2 large box retailers being Tractor Supply and Sporting Goods store, and attracted an above average sized retail store, the new liquor establishment, Amon's, demonstrates to me that in the near term, and all we can be talking about in an environment like that is the near term, 5-year leases are the standard for these kinds of properties, that they're committed to that. There were questions from the commission related to the space behind the new liquor retailer that is now identified as storage. The fact of the matter is the market demonstrated that there is not a retailer who wants to fill that whole space. Okay, Amon did not want that whole space. They were offered the whole space, didn't want it. There's no such thing as a movie theater anymore, right? And so consequently, the developer signed a lease, established great retail front presence, and now says the only future for what you guys are saying to us is the development of new retail on street front, South Wright Street. Lot 2 and Lot 3 were proposed in different locations, one on Hobbs Drive, one on South Wright Street. The council directed the applicant that they were interested potentially in supporting 2 lots, but not one on Hobbs Street. The applicant came back with the proposal, reworked a couple of times by staff to put the 2 outlots on Wright Street. So my perspective is that the developer has worked through this process cooperatively. Okay, we may not like the outcome based upon our perspective about needing to be 100% retail, big box center, but there's not evidence that there is significant marketplace demand for that. So as a commission member, not as the temporary chairman, I just ask you to consider that. Given that long conversation, any other comments? So, on item, is there a motion? Nine four.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend common council approval of the general development plan for the property at 207 through 433 South Wright Street to allow for future development of commercial out parcels and an expanded indoor storage land use, including the findings as listed under the required findings by the Plan Commission section of the report, and any conditions of approval recommended by staff or the Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion or second. May I hear comments opposed or in favor of the motion?
I still have strong concerns, but this is better than what I have seen. And I agree that retail is going to make a decision based off of what's best in their pocketbook, and expansion into the area that would be taken up by storage may not work at this particular moment in time, and it may not work ever. So we can't hold on to something based off the idea that it might be better at a later date. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Other comments or opposed? Hearing none, oh. Good. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. We move on now to item 9.6. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for your time.
Oh. I'm sorry. Item 9.5, the reason I was gonna move on to 9.6 is that, the planned infill development, step 4 is just approved. I mean, step 3 is just approved, right? The zoning change hasn't taken place. By ordinance, we cannot complete the pit. Okay, so given that, I think the item's out of order. That's the chair's rule. Okay, 9.6. Consider dates for the 2025 Plan Commission regular meeting schedule. There were some comments pointing out that we don't want to meet on Labor Day, right? So, what?
Was the assumption that you did not want to meet on Labor Day? Yes. Suggestion would be the
September 2nd?
Yes.
We move that to September 9th?
Second.
Is that correct?
Recommendation would be for Tuesday.
The recommendation on here is for Tuesday, September 2nd, and that would be the same night as GOC, so September 8th might be another choice.
I thought the following Monday was another choice.
Yeah, wouldn't that be the 8th? Yes, that was the 8th.
Okay.
I'm not available on that Monday. But that's fine, the commission.
What meeting date would you like?
You're asking someone who's retired, which meeting day is better for me?
Same for me. Yeah.
I'm comfortable meeting on the 2nd.
Is that Labor Day?
No.
Okay, the day after. Okay, cool. There we go. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Kate, building inspectors report.
Yeah, so you have the report in front of you. As you can see from tonight's meeting, we have quite a few zoning things that are on the horizon. I don't know if you have any specific questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions for T?
The Lutheran Church on Walnut Street is still on here. I assume you've got that straightened around.
Yeah, so that is,
They have curb and gutter around the parking lot?
I would say we're 75% of the way of getting that straightened out. We're still working with them, and then they still have the ADA spot that they're working on. But I am in communication with them.
And communication is put curb and gutter?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks.
The church over by, School for the Deaf, parking lot.
Yeah, that's what we're,
Okay.
Can we ask on record about any news about Myers or anything, or is that not?
so I haven't heard any, I think you can, but I haven't heard anything from them. I know in the past, we've been told that in the springtime, they make the decision as to where they're gonna be building. We used to have a contact, and it seems like every time we get someone that we can talk to, they either move on to a different position or get promoted, and then it's hard for us to, it's kind of like crickets, unless Brian's heard anything different. I'm hoping with all of the building going on here that maybe we might attract them more, so.
I would just want to point out to the commission that, T is reporting to the GOC in their, in their monthly, meeting concerning, both building and zoning, enforcement issues. And so if you're curious about building and zoning enforcement issues, which aren't a matter for our commission to supervise, you'll see them on the GOC agendas, and there's good detail there. Okay. I accept the motion to adjourn if there's no further question.
So,
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, thank you.
Okay. 15 minutes away.
Essentially, pushing there for radius essentially around the fiber. Well, so it's hard to really evaluate. We have to make sure that there's enough.